بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والسيد المرسلين سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Chapter 2, Philosophy in the West, the Doctors as Mechanics. Because perception of the world and influences of how we live in it molds or shapes our consciousness and sculpts our reality, we will find that experiences of thinking also molds our consciousness. Our mind creates what is our perspective, and by extension what we perceive as being reality. Our lived experiences generate thought. There is a reciprocity between beliefs and observations. What we look for affects what we see, so describing just the way things are, and I've stated this in math as well when I teach it to young people, is what we measure and how we measure matters. And in this statement, it's speaking about medicine. It's stating just the way things are from Chinese or homeopathic or natural medicine or even performance medicine. Western vantage points are not necessarily the same or identical. They're same in spirit, and they are not necessarily the same in the perception of those realities and the way that it's implemented. Each one of them makes sense in a body according to a different set of frameworks or beliefs or attitudes or measuring systems. It becomes clear to us that in order to understand and or penetrate the types of medicine that are considered Chinese medicine, we need to examine how reality itself is defined between East and West. Because we take for granted assumptions that are buried just beneath the skin of our conscious awareness. In this chapter, they provide the types of measuring that a Western medicine doctor is taught to, or authorized, or legally bound to manifest or to consider when they provide a treatment for people who are looking for strength or looking for relief or looking to cure a specific ailment over time. During the Middle Ages, people, especially in Western Europe, had a unified view of their universe, seeing themselves as an integral part of everything that was unseen or seen. They considered the heavens through God and the earth through nature. The break with this organic sensibility came with the decline of certain feudal systems that tended to relegate one person as the center of wealth and the rest of the system as the distribution of agricultural or an aggregate of different types of hierarchical systems, and this is simply because they were not connected by science and technology and knowledge at that time. Today it is extraordinarily important to perceive that we are all connected, more like a small city as we journey into different worlds as God has allowed us to do so. As a pervasive authority, there was and is different types of systems of religious backgrounds, and they were dependent on a spiritual community. There is an understanding that instead of being an ally with nature, it became attempt to overcome and conquer nature. Now, from a spiritual person's perspective, I would say yes, it is سخر لنا ما في السماوات وما في الأرض, that God has enabled us, empowered us to understand, perceive, and care for all that is, was, could be within ourselves and within the natural world, and to sustain it in a way that is everlasting and that allows this world to be better than we have found it. So in this case, people stood outside of it, apart from it, and sometimes people thought themselves above it. And in Arabic, people might say, "Inhum kal-an'am bal hum adallu sabila," that certain types of human behaviors may not coincide with our natural inclination to be our best, or to be good, or to do those things that are naturally loving and kind towards ourselves, towards other people, towards the natural world that we are responsible for. The earth became an object that could be manipulated and exploited for those types of individuals who had an inclination for vile, evil, spiritual activities. And there are people who did good in the world, and they considered technology and progress as the only manifesting power over nature. And then there became a division between sacred and secular activities, and looking for divine providence, it became more chaotic than orderly in the natural world. Death was associated with darkness, and it became irreconcilable with life, rather than an inevitable transition in the cycle of existence. The best protection against nature was through domination and control, to gain power over nature. In this early worldview was to be able to conquer death, and it's not a conquering, it might be an allowance to live a more natural life, because there are societies well before this one that lived thousands of years. A new set of values and beliefs were created to explain and organize the world. This type of understanding later on brought about thoughtful sciences such as mathematicians, physicists, and engineers. So I'll go ahead and stop there, and this is not the only understanding. It's simply saying that the world and ourselves as a garden, or the world and ourselves as a machine. And both from a conceptual framework are extremely important, but they're not the only explanation for what, from my perspective, God requests of us. I've said it plenty of times that the natural world is as if God has placed certain natural laws that can be nurtured, that can be cared for, and can bring about greater blessing, greater livelihood, greater healing, and metaphorically, this interchange between heaven and earth is that demonstration how we understand the world as a natural vehicle, and how do we understand the world as a garden that deserves our attention and compassion. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا يا فوز المستغفرين.